This is what the Texas.gov sent me to. It says, so when can you use deadly force in Texas to protect property? Texas law allows you to use deadly force to protect property if you would be justified in using force and you reasonably believe it is immediately necessary to prevent the imminent commission of specific enumerated property crimes. These are arson, burglary, robbery, aggravated robbery, theft during the nighttime, or criminal mischief during the nighttime.
Yep.
So it does say specifically, if you see someone trying to steal property from you and then you shoot them, that's a serious felony. If they turn towards you, that changes everything. So it's, and I also kind of think like
nighttime mischief in general is my favorite thing to be in a criminal statute.
Mischief during the nighttime.
I just like nighttime mischief. I just think that.
but it does.
We probably all got involved in nighttime mischief when we were kids, so that's also terrifying because I grew up in Texas.
But I think the reason for these laws in places like Texas is they typically want you to be able to defend yourself from crime, but they don't want people to randomly shoot people. So
exactly.
Like, I was talking to someone out in West Virginia and I said, what if someone enters my property in West Virginia? Can I defend it? And I think I was talking to a cop, actually. He said, if someone just is walking on your land, you can't just shoot them because people accidentally walk on land a lot.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
However, legally, you can defend your property from someone who is committing a crime and enters the property. So, basically, you need to be able to justify why you thought they were committing a crime or something like that, despite the fact that it's kind of more vague than that.
If you can articulate the reasons, and those reasons would be justifiable. And and that's very subjective, the way you articulate it. They always say this in government service. It's like, it's not what you did, it's how you write it up.
Yeah.
Okay. And the military is very familiar with this too. It's the way you get awards and certain commendations. If you justify it, if it's articulated properly, then you can have a lot of things happen in your favor, and vice versa too. Somebody could articulate that you were doing something that was totally justifiable. They can articulate it in a bad way. And then
here's the important thing too. It says the jury must decide whether you had a reasonable belief that deadly force was immediately necessary to prevent a perpetrator from fleeing.
Yep.
I wonder, it says immediately after committing a burglary, robbery, aggravated robbery, or theft during the nighttime.
That says to stop them from fleeing.
Right.
That's kind of intense. So that's Texas for you.
You have to give a reasonable belief that deadly force was necessary. What if the only weapon available to you is a 9mm?
Then you need to upgrade your arsenal.
No. This might actually clear you.
Yeah, if that's all you have on you. And the question is,
if the only use of force you have is considered deadly, and you have no other alternatives or options, is that considered reasonable? That's
I mean, that's the fun, and obviously it goes to a jury too. The other piece of this is, do people run around with restraints? Do you keep flex cuffs with you? Are you keeping shoestring restraints? Because that's actually the tool that should have happened in the New York subway system, right? Because the guy did something. If you could immediately incapacitate him, and a blood choke would have been appropriate, he's out for a few seconds. You zip tie up his hands real quick, and there
Tourniquet.
and you can carry those things around with you. Tourniquets might be a little bit more difficult to secure properly.
Yeah, but it's better than nothing.
I'm just saying, people don't run around with duct tape. They don't run around with flex cuffs. They don't run around with what they call like shoestring handcuffs, which I used to keep in my pockets all the time because they're really effective. But if you don't have that thing, and most people don't, then you're stuck holding this guy until the next stop. You're on the F line until you get to the platform, I guess. And that's the scary thing for these people. So, tying it back in there, the reasonable standard is like, what are they going to do? Let him get up and be pissed? I don't know if you've ever let somebody up after they've had that sort of experience. They don't generally go like, yeah, no, I'm de-escalated.
Yeah, once you grab him, that's it. You're locked in until the police come.
That's
that guy didn't have a chance, like an opportunity or the option. Like if they let him go, he was already having an episode. You're not going to let the guy. He's not going to be like, nah, it's cool, man. I'm gonna chill now. No, he'd have flipped out. There's no question about it. And it's you don't risk it. Even if maybe he wouldn't have, you don't risk it because he gets up and next thing you know, he's on someone else,
Yeah, so we've talked about this before. I even mentioned it earlier on the show, but just the propensity of left-wingers to project. Often what they will accuse conservatives of who act in defense of themselves or others as having a misinformed view of violence based on watching action movies. Oh, you only want guns because you think you're some kind of action hero. Oh, you're only trying to save the damsel in distress because you saw it in a film. In reality, their understanding of how using force works is entirely Hollywood based, right? Like they really think you can have a fight with somebody the way they do in a Marvel movie or in a choreographed fight scene where you're like just standing apart, like boxing each other, and then you get the bad guy down and then you say, stay there, fella, and he stays down without getting back up. I mean, in real life, self-defense situations are incredibly messy. They're incredibly messy, but because people are used to seeing these choreographed fight scenes in Hollywood movies where the good guy subdues the bad guy without hurting him, they think that your average person should be able to do that.
Seamus, I've seen the movies where, like, Black Widow trips a guy and he falls down and just doesn't get back up.
Exactly.
That there's no way they just made that up.
How about the magic hit where they like hit you with either like their fist or they hit you with the gun, like they pistol whip you and then you're out for however long you need to the scene ends? That's my other favorite thing. Those are almost always either lethal if you were to actually hit that one hit, or that person's going to get up and they are going to be resuming their fighting posture because they are now in a very dangerous spot.
I love this. Like, how many movies have the trope where someone gets hit in the forehead with a gun and then they wake up tied up in a chair?
Yes.
As if getting knocked out is a thing.
Yep.
So for people who don't know, it's called being put in a coma. You are comatose. If someone can use blunt force to incapacitate you to the point where you're not conscious, you've been put in a coma. And my understanding is that if it's longer than even like 30 seconds or so, it is expected you'll have very serious brain damage from that. Yeah. So when the hero then wakes up, like I think it's like Casino Royale or whatever.
All of them. It's all of them. It's always it's a rifle butt stroke right to the forehead.
Here's what happens.
See every single John Wick.
Right. They think what happens is they think they took out everyone in the room and they're like, and then the guy was like, oh, like yells something in German and hits him with the butt of the rifle.
One guy in the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
I beg people that think that kind of stuff, just go to a jiu-jitsu gym for one evening. Like, just go and try and roll with someone that just roll with the white belts. Like, I mean, I'm a white belt. I don't know anything at all. But if you've never rolled jiu-jitsu, I could probably wrap you up. And it's like,
I heard
it's hard.
Mark Zuckerberg won a judo contest somewhere, right?
He looks like he's a bad man now. He may look kind of nerdy, but that man is going to tie you up in a knot.
He has no reason not to.
Exactly.
Be
Apparently he was in a match and the ref said that he tapped out and he didn't, and he got really angry. Or he's like, I didn't tap. Are you nuts? And then he
beat the ref.
And then he bought the gym.
Yeah.
He bought the gym and fired the ref.
That's right.
Snapped his finger, and then all the refs' dirty secrets just publicly appeared on everyone's phones.
They just fell out of all the Facebook secret messages he was sending. It's dirty. It is true, though, 100%. Like, somebody who has some training versus someone who has no training, it's not even fair.
Yeah.
Someone who is a professional versus someone who has a lot of training, even, not even fair. So you look at these things and it's a total lack of an understanding of the physical reality of the world we live in. Yeah. And some of that, like you say, propagated by Hollywood, is also that women might be able to do that.
Yes.
Because that is not happening on that subway. That man in a state of mental duress, whatever it was that he walked in there, the Jordan Neely character, when he walks in and decides that he's going to lose it, you've seen that video of the guy, and who posted it? Maybe it was Ian Miles Chung too. But guy walks in, grabs a handful of hair, and he's dressed like kind of chickish.
The woman?
Yeah, and pulls her down to the ground. She can't go, and no one stands up.
Yep.
You know what makes me the most frustrated about that entire thing? Like, it makes me furious, is that the guy who's filming it is like a pretty built, male-looking, masculine dude, and he's holding his phone, doing the bystander thing.
He'll go to jail.
Would he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Look what's happening with this guy Penny.
You know what? I'd rather go to jail. I'm sorry.
I agree.
My honor's not worth that. It's not worth it that I walk and go, I let a woman get dragged off and terrorized, and that she's going to think that every single day of her life. And
but she voted for it. This is.
I don't feel good about that answer either.
This is the problem.
That bothers me. Just as a Christian person, I can't hold people accountable.
Look, I can't
for
say
big
on
like
YouTube the answer that I feel good about. So
listen. If the overwhelming majority of people in places like Chicago, LA, New York keep voting for the same people over and over again, I actually think it is fascist of you to imply that your will be done and that their democratic vote be ignored.
So here's the question.
So if they want to vote for it,
did they have another option is the other question. Because I've had this, I tend to feel the same way you do on an emotional level. And I had someone challenge me intellectually. And this is what they said. They said, was there a viable alternative? Was there even an alternative on the ballot in, let's say, Chicago? Because no Republican ran. Not that I think the Republican Party is the solution to anything at all, based on my personal experience so far. But you look at it and you go, was there anyone else they could have voted for? And
in
not,
Chicago,
whose fault is it?
Paul Vallis.
He was the right wing.
He was a moderate Democrat, tough on crime.
Okay.
And they elected the far left, critical race theorist, socialist guy.
What percentage did what is the name? Paul Vallis?
Vallis.
What did he get?
I think it was fairly close. I think it was only a few points for was it Brandon Johnson's name? I'm not completely sure.
100% with you, because Chicago politics are basically not relevant to
Democrats
my life.
have run the city for 100 years.
It's not going anywhere. But at the end of the day, do you hold the people that voted for the other guy? Is it their fault too? Because that's the tough part. I don't know. You do?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Like,
tell me more.
After 100 years of the same thing, it's like you're holding your hand on the electric stove going like, man, this sure does suck, but I'll just keep staying here.
I just love the smell of burnt flesh.
I'll just stay right here. I left. I got out of Chicago.
Yeah.
I'd been shot at before. Me and my brother are driving down. We're driving off of 290 in Independence, and for no reason, a guy just points a gun at our car and fires at us. That's Chicago. And so eventually, I'm just like, I kind of don't want to be here. It feels like a nowhere town. I would tell my friends it's the suburb of the country. It's a big city, but it's culturally stagnant. It's extremely violent, and nothing is changing about it. So I'm done. I'm leaving.
I can get behind that. Yeah, I say, I just want the question asked, is there any way that these people could not be culpable? And if the answer is no, then the answer is no.
Culpable is a strong word. I would put it this way. I get messages from people and they're like, Tim, I really need your help. We need to raise money for this guy who's being unjustly targeted or whatever. And I'm like, where did it happen? Oh, it happened in Chicago?
Pass.
Are you kidding, dude? Come on, man. Like 2 years ago, I said, I know it's hard, but you got to leave these cities. And the way I describe it is, people will tell me it's really hard to do. You want me to tell you about how I got out of Chicago? I sold all my stuff. I had $400 in cash. I found a ride share on Craigslist and said, I will drive. He had 2 cars. I said, I'll drive one of them behind you to San Diego. And that was it. And then, look, I was like 22 or 23 at the time.
Whatever. It's still a move, and a lot of people won't do it.
Not like I knew that LA, was how bad it was going to be or whatever. And moderately bad, but there's enough of LA is big enough to where I got by just fine and actually found more success. But I'm like, I'm not going to stay here. This place sucks. There's so many problems. It was so corrupt. The cops were corrupt. The government was corrupt. The crime was rampant. So I was actually intending on riding a moped. I'm like, I will just be homeless. And again, people say like, I have families, I can't do it. So let me put it this way. You are sitting in a house and the garage is on fire. The garage is attached garage. Okay. We see it happening. Oh, your neighbor was in the garage and he's screaming right now. And you're like, yeah, but I'm in the living room. And if I have to go outside, it's cold. And I have kids. My kids can't be cold. And it's like, dude, your house is on fire. If you stay inside of it, you will lose your life. It will get bad. If you leave your house now, you will survive and it will be very difficult. So the response I get from most people is, you don't know how hard it is. And I'm like, perhaps, but that doesn't change the fact statement that staying in places like Chicago, New York, Oregon, Portland, for instance, like, come on.
It's a no-go. Yeah, it looks like Beirut. It's crazy how bad it is there.
And it may be the hardest thing you've ever done, but there's not a whole lot I can say to the 5th, 6th person who's like, oh no, this guy broke into my house and I need to raise money. My mom was hurt. And I'm just like, come on, man.
No. Well, here's the thing. You say it's hard, and it is hard, but I'm 41. I got 3 kids. I sold my house because it was the right thing to do. I left a state that we were comfortable in. We had a palace. We were on like 2 acres. It was awesome. I had mountain views that like most people would stab for. And we left because you can do it. And we moved into 2 bedrooms that were my folks' place that I didn't own, which is super embarrassing at 41 years old. Nobody wants to go do that. But at the end of the day, can you go do this? Yes. Is it difficult? Sure. But you still got to do the right thing. I agree with you. They should be moving. I don't think there's any saving a lot of these places. I've been to West Baltimore. I see what it gets to eventually. West Baltimore looks like there was a zombie invasion and we lost.
East New York.
It's still going. And it's still there. There's people that live there. It's crazy.
There are sections of Chicago very much the same. And it's kind of sad. There's tremendous opportunity in these. There are massive buildings on the south side of Chicago completely abandoned.
Yep.
And I'm just thinking to myself, can you there's tons of young people who want to do things, but there are these barriers, there's bureaucracy. But aside from that, you're talking about cities like Los Angeles that had a Democrat supermajority and still couldn't solve the homeless problem because they don't want to solve the homeless problem, because they don't want to deal with any of the issues. They just want to give you mindless self-indulgence.
Yep.
And then they'll take it, and then crime runs rampant, and then they blame conservatives, they blame everyone else.
Well, you look, they always build like infrastructure behind it. They always build bureaucratic systems that pay more of their buddies to have a job, but none of the jobs go to like getting homeless people. They get more homeless people. So putting money into the problem makes more problem. It's this classic. Do you ever see the demotivators? No. The demotivers, there was a whole thing in the 90s of like motivational posters, and they'd have like a picture, like hang in there, you can do it or whatever.
Yes.
So I used to have one on my screen, which I'm sure was fantastic on a government screen. And it used to have a picture of the US Capitol building, and it said, government, if you what do they say? It says, if you don't like our problems, you should see our solutions. Which is a winner, and it's 100% accurate. But like, that's kind of the attitude. Like, government creates these things. There's another one that was about consultants, and it said consultants, something to the effect of, if you're not going to be part of the solution, there's a ton of money in continuing the problem. And that is Los Angeles. Like, that's the homeless situation in Los Angeles. They are continuing the problem for profit. And
you can always move to Florida.
You could.
Well, I just want to
still got cities there.
make a note or make a comment on the question of like bureaucracies, especially in the Chicago area. So I was also born and raised in Cook County, and I have a number of horror stories just from people working within the various government systems there. Someone I knew insisted that when they first started a job working for Cook County, I won't say what they did. They were working very hard, and they were getting ahead on their work. Well, because it's also anecdotal, right? But according to them, they were getting ahead on their work, and during their first week there, and their coworkers basically surrounded them and said, "We don't do that much in a week."
That sounds correct.
We don't. We're just letting you know, like, no.
That is a classic government experience at all levels of government.
Yeah.
What happens if you like just say, "Cool, I'm still going to do it," and then just make everyone look really, really
Disciplinary
bad?
action.
Disciplinary
They
action.
will throw you under the bus.
Something will come up. Look, you did your TPS report wasn't filed correctly. So look, the other thing about doing
If
a lot
you
of
thought
work,
the government wasn't garbage,
if you do a lot of work, right? You now have more opportunities for them to find procedural errors in your work. And so instead of people doing their job, they will spend every single minute of their time to crush you because you are upsetting the status quo.
just abolish the whole thing.
It's so bad.
Get rid of the whole damn thing.
It's the worst solution to anything except when it's the only one.
I think what's going to happen is we're going to hear more and more of these stories. Someone's going to be like, "Oh, my house was set on fire during the riots. What do I do?" And it's like, well, should have sold it a year ago.
That's right.
Should have sold it 2 years ago. I don't know. Because 2-3 years ago, the Summer of Love, 3 years ago, isn't that crazy?
Wild.
And it's like, well, what am I going to do? There's these riots going on. It's like, I get it. This sucks. It's hard. Now it's been 3 years. If you have not taken the first step towards getting away from these cities in 3 years, I don't know what you expect anyone else to do for you. No matter how hard you think it is, there comes a point where it's just like, everybody left, dude. People went to Texas, they went to Florida, they went to the middle of nowhere. Some people have West Virginia. And now you're going to look around as Antifa runs rampant and sets fire to your institutions and shuts down your infrastructure. And then you're going to be like, can someone please help me? And there's not going to be anybody there.
Yeah, no. I don't think it's wise to bet on there will be no more riots in these neighborhoods.
We're one
anymore.
outrage away from whatever the next
Exactly.
trigger is, right? Because it's not about the underlying incident. It's about the activity of upsetting the apple cart. Some of these people are just professional, ne'er-do-wells.
There's part of me that thinks that there might not be riots before the election, because riots before the election make the existing administration look bad. Now, I'm not saying that it can't happen or whatever. I'm not making a prediction, but there's part of me that thinks it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for the left to riot and upset people, your average normie voter.
But the rioters are not also like rioters are not political strategists, right?
No,
so
but
the
I think
media
they're-
will try to spin it any which way, and I think you're right that certain conditions can be created for a riot to flourish, like political leaders not cracking down on them as they spring up. So I hear what you're saying there, but it's possible things just pop off, they can't do anything about it, and they try to spin it to sound like these riots are fiery but mostly peaceful protests or whatever label they want to throw on it.
See, I'm of the opinion that the riots were not organic. I'm of the opinion that they were people were communicating with each other, letting other people, that other leftists, there was Antifa that were, the rioters and stuff. The Antifa network, the people that are in Antifa, they know each other, they communicate, and they're in touch with like other activists that are not rioters, that are people that they're in touch with teachers at schools and in colleges and stuff, people that are fairly intelligent, people that can strategize. So I do think that, and again, I'm not saying that I'm not making a prediction, but I do think that I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see any kind of significant rioting, regardless of what happens in the country, just because it will make it more difficult for the left to win. For a Democrat to win.
I just want to make one more point. I just want to respond to that. That's an interesting point. That could be accurate. You could be right about that. But even so, the framing you have is until it's convenient for there to be more riots.
Yes, of course.
And so you don't want to live in that neighborhood either way.
100%. Yes, I don't want to cut down anyone's idea about getting out of it. Tim's right. Get out of the cities if you can.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.